Welcome to the journey of an awakening spirit with your host, Kathleen Flanagan. The journey of an awakening spirit is about teaching you a variety of tools that you can use to step into your true self. It is about self-discovery, realizing you are not alone on your journey. We will open the phone lines, give readings, and talk about what our listeners want to know. So please welcome the host of the journey of an awakening spirit, Kathleen Flanagan.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Journey of Awakening Spirit. This is Kathleen Flanagan, your host, and we are streaming on the Bold Brave TV network. The purpose of the show is to help you realize you are not alone. You are in control of your life. It does not matter what your lot in life is or where you came from. We have all felt pain, suffering, hurt, abandonment, loneliness, hopelessness, etc. This show helps you to take those dark moments and turn them around to create a whole new you. We were taught to be a certain way, act a certain way, to conform to society. Being socialized is not bad, but it puts constraints on us. The guests I bring on the show are telling you their story of where they came from, the obstacles they overcame, and where they are today. They are sharing the tools they use to recreate themselves and their life. Some of the guests are still in their process, beginning a new process, comfortable in their process, or even reinventing themselves. They are giving you tools that they use to gain insight into themselves, to take control of their life, and become the person they are today. On podcast.kathleenmflanagan.com is a list of the guests that I have on the show and their contact information. I am aware that you may resonate with one or several of them. My desire is that this becomes a community where you have access to the people you wish to align with and utilize the tools that they have, as well as the tools being offered on the KathleenMFlanagan.com site. AwakeningSpirit.com is an aromatherapy-based body care line that offers alternative healing remedies that use natural and organic ingredients. We are offering a 40% discount by entering Brave TV into the coupon code. The products are guaranteed. If a product is not working, please contact me and we can reformulate the blend specifically for you. Grandma'sNaturalRemedies.net is a CBD company that uses essential oils in every blend and either has broad spectrum or an isolate. Every product is tested and the lab results are on the website. We are offering a 20% discount by entering Brave TV into the coupon code. I start every show with sound from the tuning forks. I bring in love, happiness, and balance. This sets the tone for the show and brings out the best in myself and my guest. Let's begin. Sorry about that. Not quite fully together yet. Today I have Cory Rosenke with us, and he is an author, pastor, communicator, and a tenacious pursuer of truth. Cory Rosenke is both the concept pioneer and the foremost authority on the cravings of the soul. Through session, song, workshop, and manuscript, he is dedicated to the pivotal work of connecting hungry souls to the joy of their maker. In a world where truth and reality have become shrouded in deceptive ambiguity, Cory Rosenke specializes in reasserting the clarity of divine definition and design. Welcome, Cory.
Kathleen, I am delighted to be here. I am on a lot of shows very often, but I have been specifically looking forward to being on here with you today.
Well, thank you so much for that, Cory. I appreciate that. So why don't you tell our guests a little bit about your journey in becoming an awakening spirit?
Yeah. Well, my journey started in poverty in the mountains of British Columbia, as a boy wandering the forest, asking the question why. I think a lot of kids. Actually, I'd say that's probably one of the first questions a child ever asks is the question of why. Um, but for myself, being in poverty, being in remote poverty, I would even say, I didn't have the opportunity to be distracted by people or games or events or sports. And so I asked the question of why, and that why led me into philosophy. For years, my journey began in philosophy, specifically the great philosophers, or what I would consider the great philosophers of Plato and Aristotle, and on and on. And you know what? I didn't find my why in philosophy. I found a lot of more questions of why, which I think is ultimately what philosophy is meant to do. It's meant to make us think and wonder and marvel. And so philosophy often asks more whys than it answers. And so I journeyed into psychology. And specifically, I fell in love with Freud at a young age, and just his whole theories on the development of personality and the id and the ego and the superego and all those words that we very much associate with Freud. But I have to say, I didn't find my answer in psychology either. And so next thing I went to was neuroscience. And neuroscience, for your listeners, I'm sure many of them have wondered about this. They've heard a lot about it. It's a fascinating science. It's a fascinating study. It's an evolving study. Just the neuroplasticity of the brain, Kathleen, the way that we realize that whether it's trauma or self-discipline, our brains can literally change shape over time and rather quickly. And the effects of brain chemicals, serotonin, dopamine, just it's an absolutely fascinating thing. And yet I've learned at this stage that I'm at now that journey from philosophy to psychology through neuroscience, that was the study of mechanism. It was the study of kind of an engineering. You think of two pistons firing back and forth. It's not the study of why. And that ultimately led me to look deeper, not just in the body, not just in the brain, but in the soul. And ultimately, I believe if we are going to answer the biggest whys circling the world today, the biggest why that is kind of erupting in your listeners' hearts, the answer is going to be found in the soul.
I believe that. So what is your definition of a soul, since that is the topic of our conversation today?
Yeah. Well, I think a way to describe it that made it feel best for most of your listeners would be, I say, the soul is our non-biological selves. We are 3-part beings: body, mind, and soul. 2-part biological, 1 part non-biological. And it just so happens that soul is the core of who we are. I think that's the confusion in the world today, because I can't see your soul, Kathleen, but I can see your biology. Right. And so I mistakenly interpret you as simply a biological creature when you are so much more. In fact, the core of who you are, the seat of your personality, the seat of your vibrance, and to be honest, on the negative side, the seat of our desperation and our frustration is not biological. It's non-biological. It's the soul.
It makes perfect sense, and why they say that you can see your soul through your eyes. I can't tell you how many times people have told me what they saw in my eyes. I may not have felt that way, but what they saw. And I knew that was the true essence of me. Because I remember in 2008 when I said I wanted to be a better person, because here was, my outside self, here's my inside self. And they were so far from apart. And now, as I've spent since 2008, I've really worked on bridging both of them together, because who I was on the inside, I was not operating that way from the outside. But I don't think I looked at it the way that you're talking about it. I knew that was the essence of me, but I never put the word soul on it. But it makes sense that would have been my soul, that's who we are. That's who we are aspiring to become when we want to be better versions of ourselves. I think that's what we're going into, is that godlike self. So what transpired for you when you started to go down this road and start really studying this more? Because I love your take on it, because I think that's accurate. I really do. But what made you come through that? Because yes, I've done all the studying, like you said. I mean, I was fascinated with the philosophers and Aristotle, and I got into a little bit of the neuroscience. So it's like, okay, you're walking my path a little bit. But I never really stopped long enough on the soul, other than I just assumed what it was.
Mm-hmm. Well, I often think of it this way. I think what really kind of set me down the path of wanting to really talk about the soul specifically, like I said, or if you prefer the phrase, our non-biological selves, that works too, is we live in a world today that I have become convinced we have forgotten what it means to be human. And again, I think that just comes back to the simple fact that we are somewhat deceived or fooled by the biological shapes with which we interact with every day. And we forget that we are so much more. And so I often think of it this way. If you picture a car, imagine that we were just seeing a car for the first time. We had never seen one before. It just popped in front of us. I picture the hood, in the curve of the door. That's philosophy, right? The shape of the headlights and just the aerodynamics of it. That's philosophy. And then we move into psychology and we start looking at the connecting points, the tie rod ends, right? The wheels that turn, the steering wheel that moves this whole drivetrain. And then neuroscience, is kind of looking at the electrical system, and the oils, that are pumping back and forth. And as wonderful as it is to look at that car, we have to realize this car does nothing but sit there and rust without the driver. The true wonder and marvel of the car is the driver in the seat, who's the only one that can make it move forward and back, who's the one that determines whether we turn left or right or drive slow or speed. And we have gotten stuck in this world today looking at the car and forgetting the wonder of the driver. Because that's the core of it all. And that's the core of who we are. And so for me, that's really what took me down this road, is to look at this and think of this. I had a conversation with my son last night, actually, how I talked about how, I was giving him one of my old man speeches. And I was telling him how when I was a kid, Christmas was so magical because things happened at Christmas that never happened at any other time of the year. I remember the mandarin oranges came out only at Christmas, and they were wrapped in green paper, and you knew when the mandarin oranges were in the store, it was Christmas time when you got excited. And the nut, the table would have bowls of nuts, never any other time of year like that. And then of course the idea of gifts. We didn't get a lot of gifts. We didn't have a lot of things. And so those gifts at Christmas, it was just a magical time. I said, now think of it today. One of the reasons why I think Christmas has become less and less magical for so many people is because, to a certain degree, we now live in Christmas every day. We have everything all the time. We wonder, more than ever, what to give people who have everything that we can think of. I remember my son said that to me last year. I asked him what he wanted for Christmas, and he said, "Dad, I have everything I want." And it was just like, wow. But here's the thing. My son is not happier as a boy than I was as a boy. He's on his own journey. And so I think of it this way. Think of the fact that we live in a world today that has more possessions, more things, more access to wealth opportunities, to education, comfort, leisure, world travel, the list goes on. We have more than any generation in the history of the world, and yet virtually every study shows us to be more unhappy than ever. We're depressed, despite we have access to more education than ever, and yet virtually every study shows we're more confused than ever. We're more divided than ever. And I would say under the surface of our culture, there's this rage. There's this sense that, oh man, anything could happen at any moment. And all of that, despite the fact that we have more than any generation in the history of the world, clearly we're missing something. And I believe what we're missing is the soul. We've forgotten what it means to be human. We've forgotten that the core of who we are is spiritual. It is not biological. And so we just keep piling on and consuming biological things, and we pursue biological things, and we marry people for their biology, and we use people for their biology. And we've forgotten what it means to be human. And that, I believe, is the root of our unhappiness.
Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and I want to elaborate on this when we get back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Journey of an Awakening Spirit. I'm Kathleen Flanagan, your host, and we have Cory Rosenke in the room with us today, and we are talking about the soul. Cory, as you were talking about Christmas, and I totally identify with you on that Christmas thing because it was magical, and it still is magical to me today, and it's not about gift giving. It's about creating or expanding or what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word, but it's about community, more or less, because I have friends that come over for Christmas and I like baking. So I give them little care packages of cookies and apple butter. And because to me, that's what Christmas is about. It's not about, how much money did you spend? They have everything. I have everything. So it's about just kind of sharing, like how Christmases used to be back in the old days, because it was about that sense of friendship and love and celebration, because you're celebrating each other. And then when you went down about how the kids today, they're not happy. And we do live in a very unhappy world. It's a raging world. It's angry. It's frustrated because we're going after the material and we're not going after the true essence of us. It's like we put God on the back burner. And even though our soul is a piece of God, we don't even have to say it's God. It's just that we just put that on the back burner and we're letting all this material stuff run our lives. And nobody, and I mean nobody that I have brought on my show so far has said that all the money that they've made has made them happy. Not one. I've had millionaires on the show and they're like, I was unfulfilled. And of course, we live in a society that I'm sure a lot of these people that are striving for the almighty dollar are going, what do you mean it's not making you happy? But it doesn't make you happy. It makes your life easy. It makes it convenient. That's all it does. It's not about buying things, and there's only so much you can do, and money affords a lot of things where you can help other people. But that's what I brought the show. That's why I call this the Journey of an Awakening Spirit. And even though I didn't put the word soul on it, that's what I'm striving to be. Who is the best version of me that I can be? This is a school. As far as I'm concerned, we are here in a school. And just because we know academia, that's not getting me where I feel happy and joyful and pleased. And yes, the darkness that comes from being in the soul, when that's up there, I've been down that road too. It's a hard place to be. But the way you bring this together, and in this marriage of how you brought in philosophy and neuroscience and psychology, and then putting it into the car, it's like, oh my God, you are so right on the money with this. So tell us more, because I know there's so much more about the soul that I know, but it's more of a personal, intuitive side. And you seem to have really grasped more of what the words are for people to really embrace this in such a ways. Because people always said, I'm woo woo. Okay, well, that's fine, but that doesn't mean anything. And I've spent a lifetime grounding this in, but you've mastered it. So let's hear some more about how you interpret the whole issue of the soul, how you think we can bring it out, how it helped you to bring yourself closer into your oneness. So share with the audience a little bit more about that in your journey.
Well, as you mentioned at the beginning, I believe that definition is important. And we're in a world that is increasingly moving toward the ambiguous and losing definition. And I think when we lose definition, we lose understanding. And when we lose understanding, we really lose confidence. We lose our anchor. So as far as the word goes, I would say that, to simplify things a little bit, the word soul, the word spirit, even the word heart, they're synonymous. We're speaking of our non-biological selves. We're going to hear that coming up in 2024 at the Paris Olympics. We're going to hear all about the triumph of the human spirit. There's going to be all that sorts of language, right? And we're talking about our soul. We're talking about our non-biological selves. And the beauty of it, I think, is that when we realize that our deepest why is answered in the soul, it's answered in the spiritual, it means that I don't have to get a new car to be happy. In fact, as you just pointed out, you'll get a new car and guess what? You won't be happy. I don't have to get a new job or a new spouse, right? Or a new income bracket to be happy. Happiness is right in front of us if we would but remember what we are and what we are looking for. And ultimately, I think that when I talk about the soul, I specifically often reference 5 core cravings that I believe ultimately give us a picture, a visual to a certain degree, something concrete to grasp onto about our soul. Because if our soul, I can say that our soul is the seat of our ambition, the seat of our desire. But unless we kind of are able to unpack that a little bit more, it's once again ambiguous, right? Which doesn't help. And so my journey has been taking me to trying to help people understand, first off, you have a soul. And I mean, oftentimes I'll have people who just want to spend the whole conversation right there because they're not convinced, right? And so I have to unpack what I believe is ultimately a verified, even scientifically verified fact that we have souls. But once we can establish the fact that, okay, I have a soul, then we have to say, okay, what is the soul doing? Right? Like, what is it looking for? If I say, think of our biological bodies, we're blessed with hunger, because hunger reminds us to go consume nourishment so that this body keeps working, right? We have the craving of thirst. Imagine if we didn't have that craving, if we did not experience thirst, I would forget to drink water. I'd probably get about what I'm doing. I'd forget to drink water. I'd be dead in 4 days. That craving for thirst that we take so much for granted helps keep us biologically alive every day. It says, go drink, keep this body operating. Our souls are the same. Our souls have their own cravings, and that is the seat of our ambition. That is the seat of our personality. And so oftentimes I identify 5 core cravings of the soul. Sometimes I call them our 5 core humanities, because ultimately I believe they define all human existence. They explain why everybody is doing what they're doing, whether they are in Asia or in Europe or in North America, whether they're alive now or whether they're alive in 300 BC. We all have souls. We're all pursuing the same 5 things. And if you're okay with that, I'll just kind of lay these 5 out for you, because I believe this will really help your listeners. The first one is security. Every human being who has ever lived and whoever is living now is craving security. And I often break security down into 2 components: physical security, which we would call our survival instinct, and also relational security. And that is to say, our hearts. We need to know that our hearts are safe in the hands of those who hold them. And that's true of everybody. It was true of Mother Teresa, and it was true of Al Capone. We need to know that our hearts are safe, and we cannot experience peace and happiness if we don't have either of those things. So security, that is not just a psychological craving. It is deeper. It is in the very root of our soul. Second is identity. Every human being on earth needs to answer. I always say identity asks 4 symbiotic questions. Who am I? Why am I? Do I have value? Do I have purpose?
Yeah.
And it is amazing how you can have all the security in the world, all the love in the world, but if you don't know who you are, you won't have peace. You won't be able to experience happiness for any length of time. And then thirdly is independence. We all crave independence of some kind. And I again break independence into 2 parts. There's the freedom aspect of independence, and that we all crave some sort of autonomy. If someone is trying to control us and confine us, we are not at peace. There is an agitation. There is a desire to revolt. And so we have this craving for some sense of autonomy. That's why prison is a punishment in and of itself, right? Because it confines us. That's why even kind of the attacks against free speech feel so offensive, because it's a removal of our freedoms. And so we have the freedom aspect of independence, and then we have the individual aspect. We all need to know that we are individuals. I need you to know that I am an individual, that I am distinct, and in that way that I am unique. I've even found this over the years it's true of everybody, including those identical twins. You come across sometimes who they seem to love having the same haircuts, and they love wearing the same sweater. But every single one of them, at some point, there will come a day where they need to have something that is distinct about them, or they won't be at peace. If we don't know that we are distinct, we will feel redundant. We will feel unseen. We will feel useless. Maybe you're the athletic twin or the academic twin or the twin who likes Star Trek. Whatever it is, we have to have something that makes us distinct. So security, identity, independence. Fourthly, significance. We all need to know that we're not only separate and we're individual, but we're also special. We're not just set apart, we're set above. And again, we pursue all these things in different ways, right? For somebody like Usain Bolt, he needs to be the fastest man in the world. And when the day comes when someone breaks his 100-meter record, he's going to struggle with okay, where do I find my significance now, right? Hopefully he's working on that right now, because that'd be a bad place to keep it. For someone else, they just need to feel like they make the best apple pie. They make the neatest bed. Whatever it is, we have to have something that makes us feel special. It is a huge craving within us. And fifth, innocence. We all need to know that we are good boys and girls. And again, innocence, it's not enough to be declared not guilty. We want to be declared righteous in some sense, that we are good. These are the 5 cravings that I believe through looking through this lens, we can understand all human movement, all human history, everything that's unfolding us in front of us right now. The reason why certain people really want to get divorced, let me start with marriage. The reason they want to get married is because they're looking for a place, for security, a place where they can identify that doesn't infringe too much on their independence, where they feel significant and they feel innocent, they feel righteous. And the reason they want to get divorced is because they didn't find it there. Perhaps they were made to feel guilty, or they were made to feel small, right? Or there something happened that they did not want to identify with. So these 5 cravings push us into marriage, and they push us into divorce. They're the reasons why we think, you know what, if I could just become an attorney, I would be at peace for the rest of my life. That's my great ambition. And then we go do the hard work. We do the schooling. We get our practice up and running. And we start to think, wow, what I was hoping I would find here, I didn't find here. Maybe I should become another kind of attorney. Maybe I should get on the Supreme Court. Maybe that will do it, right? We're propelled through life and time by these 5 cravings of the soul. And the beauty about this, about understanding the soul in this way, is because I can look at you, Kathleen, and you have a whole story I know nothing about. You have a childhood that I don't know anything about. You have dreams and aspirations that I know nothing about. But I can look at you and I can say, as much as there are things about Kathleen I don't know, I know that at her core, she's looking for the same thing I am. Security, identity, independence, and significance, and innocence. And if I want to be your friend, right? If I want to be good to you, I'm going to be a person that tries to aid you in your pursuit of these cravings. And if the time ever comes where there's friction between us, Kathleen, it's going to be because one of us triggered the other in security, identity, independence, significance, and innocence. When we understand this about ourselves and we understand this about one another, it grants us the ability to connect, to affirm, to encourage, to love even, in ways we never could before. Because I now finally see you, Kathleen, and you see me now. You know what I'm all about. At my core is these 5 cravings. And that is true of every gender, every generation, every nationality. It is the great unifier amongst us all. Biology divides us, but when we talk about the soul, it unites us.
We're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break, and we'll continue this when we get back.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Journey of an Awakening Spirit. This is Kathleen Flanagan, your host, and we are streaming on the Bold Brave TV network. And I have Cory Rosenke in the room with us today, and we are talking about soul cravings. And during the break, Cory and I were just chatting a little bit, and I've watched my whole life unfold before me. And this is like the 5 basic needs that we have to have on a physical level. Then you got the Pavlov thing. I mean, it's on the spiritual level, this is it, because this is what has always driven me in my life. My independence has been very important. Significance is like, I'm just working through the significance now that I do matter. And then I think about like all these war-torn countries and what the United States is doing if we go over there, or if England goes over, or whoever goes over there, and we decide that we're going to go blow them up just because we want their oil or we want whatever it is that they want. And I had a gentleman on my show who was several years, like 20, 30 years, at least 11 in Afghanistan. And he talked about that, the war-torn countries and what it does. And they're going in and arresting somebody because somebody said he was a bad guy, and mom's crying, the kids are crying because they're coming in the middle of the night. And he said, after a while, that gets to you. He said, well, how could it not get to you? Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't matter what our color is, what our skincare is, or our body, male, female, what religion we practice. We all want to take care of ourselves, and we want to take care of our families. That's the bottom line. Those are basic instincts that we all have. And you brought this down in such a way that makes perfect sense, because I didn't have security as a little kid. I came from a very abusive family, so I didn't feel secure. I lost my identity. I didn't know how to speak. They told me I wasn't allowed to speak because nobody wanted to hear what I had to say. Well, that obviously didn't last very long now, did it? I have a lot to say. And then independence. Oh my God. I mean, I remember when I was younger, I was so codependent on people because I didn't know how to handle anything. So I thought if you were codependent, that like filled whatever that little gap was that was missing inside, until I found out what true independence was. Big difference. I always thought I was worthless and unworthy. So yeah, significance, that was big. And then innocence. Well, that one I don't think I ever lost, because people are like, I can't believe you don't know that. I'm like, and I'm like this little kid sometimes of, what do I know? And I think that's innocence is so vital on many levels, because that keeps that childlike wonder in us.
Well, think of this, Kathleen. Virtually every argument you've ever had, like, this is amazing when you think about it. Virtually every argument you've ever had, or any offense you've ever taken, happened because you perceived that somebody was accusing you of wrongdoing or wrong thinking.
Oh yeah.
And so our natural response, because we can't have that, we need to feel innocence. We tend to do two things. We either run away, because we can't be around someone who makes us feel guilty all the time, or we fight. And we enter into what I call the righteousness wars, right? Someone will say,
yeah, I do that.
You left your socks on the floor, right? And rather than saying, oh, you're right, I left my socks on the floor, I shouldn't have done that. What do we say? Yeah, well, you left the bathroom in a mess, right? And then we enter these wars because we don't need to feel totally innocent. We just need to feel like we are more innocent than the other person. And so when we think of, when I think of cancel culture today, boy, that is all around the innocence craving, right? When we think, you mentioned war, right? Why did one country attack the other country? Well, I'll tell you what it had something to do with: security or identity, wanting to go back and recapture the glory of the old country. Independence, significance. Sometimes, sometimes it's just flat out that. Sometimes a country has a leader that has a massive ego, and so they have to take what you have in order to feel significant, right? And then sometimes, of course, you will justly go to war in order to protect someone's innocence. But it's all kind of evolves around these 5 cravings, both at the toddler level, when you watch the toddlers playing over toys, to that world leader level when we see, well, oftentimes the mess that is being made.
So is there a way to overcome some of that? Because, like when you talked about the innocence, that is so, I do that. I do that. I try not to do that, but I still do it. And it's like the kid getting caught in the cookie jar. I didn't do that. You're catching them in the cookie jar and they're like, no, I didn't do it. That kind of thing. So as an adult and in a civilized society, how do we evolve beyond that? Because, yeah, this is like an innate response that we have. So how do we evolve from that other than being conscious?
Yeah. Well, I think the key to this, Kathleen, and it's going to be obvious to you when you hear it, these are non-biological cravings, so they cannot be satisfied in the biological. The answer is going to be found in the soul. It's going to be found in the spiritual. That's why I saw an interview with Elon Musk a number of weeks ago, the richest man who ever lived, so far as we know. And the interviewer asked him, "Are you happy?" And Elon paused for a moment, and then he looked at the interviewer and he said, "I don't think many people would want to be me." And you think, here's a man who can have anything the world has to offer, and it's not enough. The biological cannot satisfy that non-biological craving within him. Jim Carrey, I heard a quote from him again a little while ago, the Canadian comedian. He said, "I wish everybody would have the opportunity to experience riches and fame so that they would realize that's not the answer. You know, again, we have a man rich and famous, and the biological things, the biological praise isn't enough. And that is not the exception. That is the rule. You know, I often say, I remember when I made $12 an hour. And I very clearly remember this, making $12 an hour.
You were
and thinking,
rich.
if I could just make 15, I would be able to live a happy life. And then I made
Oh my
15.
God.
And then it's like, oh, if I could just make 20, everything would change, right? I made 20. Nothing changed. I just need 30, right? And it keeps going. It's never enough because I keep trying to fill my biological craving with, or non-biological craving with biological things, and it will not work. You have to look inside. You have to look towards the spiritual. That's the only place that these cravings can be satisfied.
So basically, so this is, I guess, what I'm thinking is when you focus in on the inside of you, your own personal growth and development, because I mean, I can still do a lot of that, you know, well, you left your socks on while you did this. I do that. I'm so guilty of that. I really, but we laugh. I mean, that's a fun part. At least we laugh about it because we know it's ridiculous. And it's our little kids coming out for whatever strange reason. But I think the one thing is the more I go inside and grow and evolve and bring out that magnificent spiritual being of myself is when I realize I don't need all the money in the world. I don't want all the money in the world. I want enough to be happy, to be content, to pay my bills, to pay emergencies if emergencies come up, kind of thing. That's where I'm at. And I was talking to my business partner this morning, and he made a comment to me. And I said, now you understand why I step away from spirituality sometimes, is because he's like really diving in. But then it's like this biological side of him. He's forgetting things. He's getting upset with the mundane. He's tripping over things. He's not seeing something because he's kind of like in a higher vibration. And I said, but there's a balance. We have to find a balance in the human side, because we are still having a human experience, but our spirituality, our spirit side needs to evolve and grow. Mm-hmm. So you have to find that balance. Because I said that's why I walked away years ago, because I was too high. I was having too many problems, and I wasn't grounded, and I was like losing touch with reality, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And now I feel very grounded in what I'm doing because of this. So would that be your take, is to really develop more and find your own happiness, your own peace, what makes you happy, find your dream? Is that what you would recommend?
I would say, as long as your dream isn't biological, you have a chance. Because
I want to be the best I can be. I mean, to me, that's exactly not a biological thing. Yeah. That's the best version of me.
Yeah. And I would say that here's the challenge. Let me add some confusion into the clarity, which is not what we generally want to do, but we have to talk about this if we're going to actually make progress moving forward. So we have these 5 cravings of the soul, and how they're neither good nor evil. It's how we direct them that at the end of the day defines good or evil. So as an example, in the development of human morality, we consider people good people who give and preserve the security, identity, independence, significance, and innocence of others. And bad people are people who threaten or steal or molest the security, identity, independence, significance of others. It's a very simple metric. But into this mix is another part. In religion, they call it sin. In philosophy, we call it the fatal fantastic element. And it is that part of us that is undeniable, that seeks to, you give us something beautiful, you give something beautiful to humanity, we will wreck it. Like it's just a rule that has been observed since the beginning of time. We have within us this other thing that seeks to disrupt and wreck and bring chaos to. And so we have these 5 cravings. And let's, as an example, if I'm going to pursue significance in what we would call a good and ethical and moral way, I'm going to pursue significance by working hard, by getting up early, by trying to strive to make something beautiful, to do what no one else is doing so I can make something that everybody can enjoy. That's a beautiful way to pursue significance. But what do a lot of people do? Rather than like working hard to create something beautiful, I would just suppress you, Kathleen. I just push you down. And in so doing, I can make myself think I'm above you. It's a fraudulent significance, right? And yet that is the choice given to us. If you want to be significant, if in the eyes of others, however, whatever metric a specific culture has made, I'm going to pursue beauty and goodness and love and hard work, or I'm going to suppress and I'm going to malign and I'm going to push down. And one of those is a good way to pursue significance. The other way is really bad. The same thing is true with innocence. Innocence is a beautiful and connective force designed to propel me into right living with my maker and my neighbor and, my family members. But when it's distorted by that fatal, fantastic element, right, then I find my innocence by just slandering you, trying to make you feel guilty and you feel ashamed. And that's how I somehow get this false metric that I am somehow righteous, by declaring you unrighteous. That is, like I said, I believe that's the root of cancel culture today. A large part of it, probably a melding of the cravings. So ultimately, if you're going to pursue these, if you're going to find fulfillment, if you're going to satisfy these cravings of your soul, right? Now that you know what you're looking for, you're going to have to experiment. You're going to have to search around and try to find out where it works and where it doesn't. But at the end of the day, now that you know what you're looking for, you at least have a chance of finding it. And if you will add to that the awareness that there is something within you that seeks to undo the good that you are trying to do, right? Then again, you can name the adversary, you can name the goal, and you have a chance of victory.
Okay. Well, we have 2.5 minutes left. So why don't we take this opportunity of how can we get a hold of you?
Yeah. So the best place to get a hold of me is at CoryRosenke.com. It is my website. It's the center. You can learn more about me. You can find out where the book is, or at least a few places. It's everywhere. So if you just wanted to find the book, The Magnetic Heart of God, Understanding the 5 Cravings of Your Soul. But that would be the place to get a hold of me. But rather than promoting myself, can I just say one quick thing?
Yes.
I want to tell your listeners, more than a brain or a body, you are a soul. You are not the reflection in the mirror. You are not the number on the weigh scale. You're not the diploma on your wall. You aren't the balance in your bank account. You are so much more. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. Now that you know what you're looking for, I really hope you can go find it.
Wow, that's powerful, and that is right on the money. I say that all the time. I mean, I still get guilty of some of that, but on a whole, when I remember who I really am, it's not important. It's how am I showing up in the world? How am I treating people around me? How am I treating animals? That's what matters. That's what makes me feel good. And that's what makes all of the world better. And that's how we're going to change the world, is when we become better with ourselves. We start expressing it out there in the world, then our world can change overnight. So I want to thank you so much, Cory, for being on the show. This was such a great topic, and I'd love to have you come back and continue, because there's so much more that we can talk about and share on just this topic alone. And because we don't think that way, and now that there's some basic tools out there that we can start looking at, I'd love to elaborate on that a little bit more down the road. So thank you again,
Kathleen,
so much.
I would be delighted. Thank you.
Perfect. So thank you so much again. So all right, I have one more question for you. What would be one piece of advice you would offer the audience to help them move in a different direction to achieve their dreams?
Yeah. Don't believe that lie. Don't believe that lie that says you are just a biological creature. Don't believe that commercial, that promise from that politician who is simply trying to promise you some sort of biological advancement or biological benefit. You are so much more. And when we finally authentically grasp that fact, it'll revolutionize your priorities. It'll revolutionize your hopes and ambitions, and it will truly change your life, I believe.
Touche on that. All right. Well, everyone, I really appreciate you coming by and watching the show today. And I want to let you know that please feel free to subscribe to my channel at Kathleen M. Flanagan. My books, Dancing Souls, The Dark Night of the Soul, and The Call are up on Amazon and Kathleen M. Flanagan. And book 3, Awakened, is due to be coming out this month. I just have to give the sign off on my designer because it's done. I just haven't done it for some strange reason. Next week, we are going to have Derek Johnson, Taking Control of the Mind and Body So You Can Thrive. And I will see all of you next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. And from my heart to yours, I wish you all a fabulous week.
This has been the Journey of an Awakening Spirit with your host, Kathleen Flanagan. Join Kathleen each week as she will inspire and empower all those who are drawn to her to live their highest vision in the context of love and joy. Right here Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.